Here she is, everybody. Long awaited, highly anticipated, the PMDG 777-200ER for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. So I hope you are all doing very well wherever you are in the world. I, along with many people, have been missing the PMDG lineup in MSFS 2024. For whatever reason, whether you've transitioned all the way across into the newer sim voluntarily, or like me, you've had some technical problems and it's kind of force deleted the 2020 simulator. But this naturally is the culmination of many months of hard work from the PMDG team. They're releasing this for both simulators, which is super exciting. The 200ER is probably the aeroplane out of the 777 family that we can kind of know or be most familiar with compared to the others, because most of us have at some point most likely flown on one in our lives. Now this is a preview version, so I hope you enjoy what's going to be covered in today's video. Hit like, hit subscribe, and as always share your comments down in the comment section below. With it being a preview build, this is not the final version, so there are still tweaks to be made. There are still some elements of the Soundscape, for example, which we'll discuss very shortly, that are still being tweaked upon as well. A whole host of liveries, and it's installable via the new OC3, which is pretty swish. And that looks like this. So you can see there that the 200ER is at the top, and also you've got all of the MSFS 2020 product lineup that you may or may not own down in here as well, installable. And over time that'll expand to cover the entire product lineup as well, of course. When you do get into an aircraft and you install it, you will see a whole host of liveries. And if I just expand this into full screen now so you can see all of them in one go, there is a plethora of liveries across a variety of engine options. So you've got the Rolls-Royce Trent engine option on the 777, you've got the Pratt & Whitneys, and you've also got the General Electric GE90s that we're all familiar with. And with those, a whole load of liveries associated with them. And if you want to, you can just hit install all, that green button up there, and that'll allow you to basically just install all of them at the same time. And the import there would be the way that you would import your custom or third-party liveries, for example virtual airlines like Osprey Airways and community-made airline liveries. But I've selected a couple to install, and I've set up just a handful of custom views for us to enjoy today as well. Before we go into some of the other kind of key features and we get her in the air, what I want to show you is some tweaks to the Universal Flight Tablet. On top of the EFB, performance tool calculations, all of that sort of stuff that we've seen previously, ground operations for example, the features that we are familiar with, there is now also a weight and balance menu here. In short, you'll be able to either randomize your loads and select whatever you want. You can see here just clicking randomize creates all sorts of different numbers, and those numbers then translate to the change in the performance envelopes, the center of gravities, the fuel weights and that kind of thing. You can also press load from SimBrief if you connected that, and you can get it all connected accordingly. And you can also, providing you have a Navigraph Unlimited subscription, install the custom nav data into the aircraft directly via the Universal Flight Tablet. And it's as simple as a click of a button like that. So we're in the PMDG house livery, and what I'm going to do, we've got the Rolls-Royce Trents at the moment. I'm going to go through the 3 different engine options, and we're just going to have a little listen to some of the engine soundscapes. Not all of them, some of them are still being tweaked and added prior to release, which is expected in the next couple of weeks. And apparently it's an entirely new sound set, or sound environment for the entire 777 fleet. So the 777-300ER, the Freighter and the 772, all based on new recordings, new sound processing technology, and it's kind of a new ongoing investment in the products by PMDG to kind of improve the quality a little bit. They've listened to some of the feedback from folks what we'll do is we'll release all of the ground equipment and kind of play as engineers for a moment and do an engine run-up. So first up, the Rolls-Royce Trents. So one thing that was noticeable just then with the start-up for the noise, for me, with my speakers here, hopefully you could pick it up where you were, wherever you're. So what was noticeable for me for the start-up, albeit with my system speakers, YouTube compression may change that, so hopefully you've had the same experience, was a noticeable frequency and pitch change, and you could really hear as well once the fuel started to get introduced into the engines as well. Now most of the sounds in this build are cockpit environment and interactive sounds, so a lot of the juice is all here. Over the next few weeks after release, what the PMDG team will be doing, we'll be supporting with future updates. We might get a couple of updates in fairly rapid succession, not sure how it's going to work, but they're going to continue to layer in all of the new engine sounds in the weeks following the initial release. Love the noise. One of the things you'll also notice early on will be these noises. They sound so good. Everyone's just going to be doing rejected takeoffs. From the outside, look at that engine wobble. Superb. Now we're going to have a little look at takeoff sounds and the sound environment with this aircraft with a bit of a preview flight shortly in the British Airways livery. But what we'll do now is we'll hop into the General Electric version and the Pratt & Whitney's, and we'll do those same kind of soundscape tests that we've just done, plus some engine kind of power up, spool up noises, sound checks too. Next up, still at Heathrow, this time on the runway, we'll do the sound checks with this ANA, All Nippon Airways 777-200ER, and the Pratt & Whitney's. There they are. So just spinning away in the wind. And what we will do is get it all fired up and have a little listen to those engine start noises. Fuel's being introduced. It's a very different soundscape, isn't it, with this different engine option compared to the Rolls-Royces, which have got that really noticeable kind of tune to it. Engine 2. Let's extend the flaps. Very noticeable whir. We like that. And then from the back, we just deflect those controls. Look at that. Superb. Really nice. And then flap 0. Go ahead and do the reverse thrust noise from in the flight deck again like before. Very, very different. And then from the outside again. Rightio, next with the part brake set. I've rejected takeoff. We won't bother with any flaps, and what we'll do is we'll run up to 100 knots. We'll probably get some master cautions, master warnings, but we'll just go to kind of toga. We'll listen for the sounds in this flight deck view, and roughly about here for the view on the exterior. Okay, so part brakes off. We'll set 50% M1 first. That looks good. Brakes can come off. Toga. That's now power set. Speed's alive. On the outside. Back to the flight deck. We'll get ready for the projected takeoff, which is going to be now. And that's max auto brake kicking in. And that's the Pratt & Whitney's, with a couple of different flight deck environmental sounds for good measure. And next up, a BA livery, one of the included ones from the PMDG team, powered by the General Electric GE90 power plant option. So, to fly to surf, we're spinning in the wind, those nice, highly efficient engines. And again, like before, we are power off. We'll get left engine started, and then we'll mix the flight deck and external noises just to kind of listen to both at the same time. Oh yeah. I love how all of the three engine options sound so different. Engine 2. And with them both stable, we'll go to reverse. Back to idle. Superb noises. I love the sound environment. The 777 in real life has just got a superb soundscape to it in real life anyway. It's great that this is in the sim too. And reversers on the external. And then finally, we've got engine run up, toga, and that rejected takeoff, just to kind of complete the soundscape. Again, this view and that external view, same as the Pratt & Whitneys that we've just experienced. One thing I do want to show you, just before we do start to power up, is kind of the vibrations on the aircraft. If we just spool up, you see the horizontal stabilizer there fluctuating and vibrating with the sheer power of the engines. Which is always a cool feature to see. Right. A warning. We've got a couple of warnings there, but that's okay. We'll disregard those for the purposes of the test. Brakes off. And we'll set 50% like before. That's 60. Toga. And on the outside. Projected takeoff. And there we have it. So here we are at Manchester. We're going to configure for a short hop down to London Heathrow just to test the aircraft in flight, chat about a few things to consider prior to its release. We're in the 200ER with the Rolls-Royce Trent 892 power plant option. Typically these aircraft are used predominantly kind of Gatwick for oceanic ETOPS type flights. The G90s might be used for things like Tokyo, but the Rolls-Royce, at least with BA, would be used for routes like Mauritius, for example. I'm going to spend a few minutes just getting all of this set up ready to go, and I'll see you in a few minutes. So let's go through a little brief. We're stand 12 here at Manchester. Real ops, live time, live weather. They are using 23 left for departures, so we're going to replicate the same. Short taxi down Papa, over Papa 1 to cross 23 right. And then we'll work through Tango for full length 23 left onto the is the incorrect departure routing there. We're going to be onto the Samba 1 Yankee departure instead.
Commencing push.
And at 3.2 DME Manchester we'll then work north to 283 degrees, so that little arc around the town to avoid that for noise, and then climbing up to 5,000 levelling off, and then we'll continue that climb up to flight level 190, routing via Honolulu into the Heathrow Star Honolulu 1 Hotel, via Bovingdon for ILS 09 left. Pushbacks commenced, and we will start the engines. And as before with the 777-200ER, you can go ahead and work through the checklists. You can either override them if you wish, or you can work through and tick them all, whatever works best for you. There's a long push onto Papa, just to get Lima clear there. A couple of different options, depending on what custom profiles you have at the airports you've got installed.
Please set parking brakes.
Park brakes set. And that's both engines 1 and 2 started, set, checked. So what we can do is trim 6.25. Make sure that's set there, the little diamond. While that's moving, what we can do is bring up the flight controls page, which will give us a stab trim reading there, 6.25, that's what we want. Rudder trim 0, reset neutral. We can go aileron left, back to neutral, aileron right,
Tow truck disconnected.
back to
Bypass
neutral,
pin removed.
all the way back,
Left
neutral,
is clear. Right is
and
clear.
forwards. We'll set flap 5. That's all good, checked and set. We go ahead and just pop the transponder on TARA now, because we're not on VATSIM or anything, we're just flying offline for the purposes of today's video. And then working back up here, what have we got? LNAV, VNAV armed, auto thrust systems are on and armed, flight directors are on, and our MCP is set. Range rings, all of that's good, and the flight controls. We do rudder. There goes the ground pin with the flight ground handler. Before taxi checks then, anti-ice is automatic as required. Warning recall. Water brake rejected takeoff, flight controls checked, ground equipment's clear, and then we've got flaps 5 before takeoff, and then it's after takeoff, which is an automated checklist. So there's our V speeds. We go ahead, pop the parking brake off, left and right is clear, taxi lights on, And just as we start to creep, a little dab of the brakes. APU off. Been a while since I've been in the triple, so I'm just going to have a quick check of the overhead panel. Make sure everything looks good. It does. And then we'll taxi out to that runway crossing. So the 777-200ER, much like the 300 and the Freighter, for what it's worth, have got that automatic cruise system, which is a really cool feature, and that auto sim rate as well. So if you want to fly transatlantic, for example, but you don't have 9 hours, you could use the time compression function if you wish to reduce that time. It's got all of the other features like route offsets, holds, all of the great functionality that the 777-300ER and the 777 Freighter have got. Some of the differences, though, of course, the Freighter, for example, has got the fuselage of this aeroplane, but the wings of a 300. So these wings have got a shorter span. The engines have got a different power output, and therefore it flies ever so slightly differently. Strobes, right and left clear. Crossing 23 right. Runway turn off lights. Price is expected to be around that of the current 777 offering, for what it's worth. There's no officially confirmed data for that. Cabin's now secure, but yeah, absolutely. We know roughly, therefore, the ballpark figure that we can expect. Same principles for taxi apply, with it being a longer, heavier aeroplane. In fact, what we're going to do is just go ahead and get lined up, ready to go. So we'll pop weather mode on, traffic, VORs, nav, everything's set, checked. Let's pop the strobes on again. Final check of the overheads. We've already got cabin secure, and the transponder is set TARA. And we'll keep it rolling just to keep it nice and efficient. So 50 or so percent N1. That bottom screen is cleared. We're very light today, so we expect therefore a very quick takeoff. And we've got a D rate. That's about 50. Toga. So we got D rate. I don't seem to have set my keybinds particularly well.
V1.
Rotate. Look at this. It's an absolute rocket. Certainly on these lighter routes. Amazing soundscape. Positive rate. Gear up. Listen for the sounds. Autopilot on. LNAV, VNAV, speed. Gears up. Auto brakes off. Runway turn off. Taxi lights come off. And accelerating. We'll clean her up. Flap 0. Super turbulent. Amazing wing flex on those wings. Look at that. But it also shows you how incredibly turbulent the conditions are at the moment as well. Okay, there's the hard thrust reduction, leveling at 5. There's a whole lot of turbulence over the UK at the moment, a lot of kind of weird, unstable air, so it's nice to see that the aeroplane is doing quite well with handling all of that as well, and that wing flex there looks really quite cool. Heading outbounds, we will push through the constraints and we'll get her up to 190. Bring the noise, look at that. So the current expectation on PMDG is a product release between Tuesday the 29th of April and Thursday the 1st of May. Of course, this is a preview just a few days prior to that. So I expect over the next couple of days I'm going to have additional updates to the pre-release package that we've got, adding in a couple of new features as well, which is quite cool. 3 engine options, as we've mentioned, with their own engine models, their own sound packages and their own performance profiles specific to those engine choices that you choose, which is pretty nifty. And it's the first native Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 package created by the PMDG team, which is what we're using today. We're using that simulator, and that's very exciting indeed. We already mentioned right at the start of the video installation via the OC3 software, the PMDG Operations Center 3, and it is also available for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 as well upon release. If you do purchase it, you'll get access to both the 2020 version and the 2024 version. And eventually, for those of you who might be on Xbox and all that kind of thing, there'll be a heck of a delay, but eventually it will find its way onto the Microsoft Flight Simulator marketplace. For what it's worth, Robert Medazzo, the kind of the boss of PMDG Simulations, he's got access to the United D-Check, like heavy maintenance procedures. And he mentioned on the forum the other day, which was quite an interesting read, that he actually flew this aircraft through the entire heavy maintenance validation test profile and found that 4.35 hours of in-flight maneuvers and system operations validation and 90 minutes of pre-flight system checks showed how remarkably accurate this aircraft was in the sim, which is supremely exciting. And it's a fast jet, so as quick as we're up, we're already thinking about heading on back down. And we've mentioned earlier that we're expecting 09 left, so with all of that sorted out, we've already put the arrivals in to Heathrow, and we've checked our legs page via Bovingdon. That's our transition into final approach. And eventually we'll get our thrust limitation speeds and all that sort of thing. Now, as before, if you wanted to enter holds at any point, what you could in theory do is just go into that hold tab, and much like the 777-200, you could go ahead and set up, for example, a hold at Bovingdon, checking the data against the charts that you have to make sure it's all good, and it's inbound 116 with a right turn 1 minute leg, and that is exactly as it shows on the charts. Max speed 220, flight level 70. It's telling us there the best speed is 206 to achieve a much neater hold. So that we can be executed, and then in there we've got the hold at Bovingdon generated into our route. We can also look at the NavRad page, and currently it's parked. It's a question that got asked previously with the other 777 releases, but effectively we've already put the arrival procedure in, so the aircraft knows that. It's got the frequency, it's got the identifier, it's got the inbound course. What it's doing is it's parking that, so it's not permanently seeking it at kind of like, for example, now in our flights, or at the start of a flight after you've mid-Atlantic or something crazy, depending on what route you're doing. So it just parks it, and it waits until you are closer and lower before it then begins to seek that ILS signal. So what you'll see nearer to our destination, in this case Heathrow, is it will become active in a short while. I'll pop the approach thing on the standby instrument as well, just so you can see that in action, and we'll set auto brake 1 ready to go for our approach in shortly. So yeah, lots of different changes, lots of different things to get excited about and look forward to, which is pretty cool. It's a super fast aircraft anyway. You can whack it up to 300 knots at this altitude. even faster. I think it will go as high as 320, and it's very efficient. You can fly 13 odd hours if you wish, quite comfortably, using time compression or otherwise. And as we saw at the start, loads of different liveries to choose from across those 3 engine options. If you're a Osprey Airways pilot, we'll get it added to New Sky as quick as we can, so you guys can all enjoy flying this aircraft in the sim, and we'll get the livery teams to work to get some Osprey Airways liveries sorted out as fast as possible as well. For what it's worth, the liveries that are included are really nicely designed and nicely created, and performance in the 777 is as good as you would expect from the PMDG team. You were looking at, what are we on at the moment? Let's see. I've uncapped my sim, running at 4K on the RTX 4090, and I'm running at 100 frames per second currently, which is crazy good. I'll expect probably around 60 with frame generation on at Heathrow, which is incredibly heavy on performance on the system. Let us know down in the comments section what routes you might be flying, which livery you're going to dive into first, what you're perhaps looking forward to the most from the release as well. Share your thoughts down below. Interested to hear all of your thoughts and opinions. And like before, if you wanted to, you could get your service-based failures enabled, and you can increase that rate if you wish, or leave it at 1 times to keep that realistic. And with that, you'd need to keep the aircraft maintained as you fly it through its service over the years. Or you could turn it off, or if you wanted to just kind of test the metal a little bit, you could actually pick one of these to trigger, much like the other aircraft that they offer. And if you are flying long hauls and you want auto step climbs to help you out, make sure that the little collar there is on automatic, and then what you'll do is, as you cross in your step climbs throughout your long haul route, the aircraft will automatically recognise that and step up to that next altitude throughout your step climb profiles. Those of you with Navigraph chart subscription, like the other 777s in the other simulator, you can get hold of your charts as we showed at the very beginning as well. You can update your nav data if you missed that, go back, check that bit out. And you can pin all of your charts as well. So we'll set ILS 09 left, and what I'll do is I'll hand fly the last little bit. So we will set a decision altitude of 279, and the weather at Heathrow 130 at 4, but variable between 080 and 180 knots, scattered at 034, temperatures 13, dew point 5, QNH 1023, very high. So we can get that set as well. Top of descent is coming up. I'm just going to flick that to the thousands and set 7 for Bovingdon. Order brakes already set, and we'll revert to the checklists for descent. So, warning recall checked. Order brake set to 1. Landing data, VREF and minimums. We'll grab hold of that shortly, and the approach brief is complete. So as we approach top of descent, like the other triples as well, just as a feature reminder, perhaps you're even brand new to these, so you're perhaps seeing these features for the first time, you get that little kind of diamond there with the profile for your VNAV, and then as it reaches that kind of aircraft horizon line there, that's when we go into that descent, LNAV VNAV speed, thrust goes to idle, we begin that descent down towards Bovingdon, in this case 170, but first we've got that stop at Soppit 150 in the descent. We've also got quite a bit of deceleration to try and achieve as well. So we'll go back into kind of an automatic speed mode, a VNAV path, and we'll let the aeroplane handle that as well. And one thing I found with the PMDG products, it does all of this very, very well. And it also has a data link, so if you are flying on VATSIM and you had a Hoppy account, you can connect that and you can go ahead and get your departure clearance checks and all that sort of thing as well. So you can log on to your local stations and deal with your ACAS en route and pre-departure clearance, all that sort of stuff if you wish. So a little tip for those of you flying on VATSIM into Heathrow: if you are flying on VATSIM and you're flying into an airport that's really busy, like Heathrow quite often is, it's always worth you putting in the holds at Bovingdon, at Lambourne, at Ockham, so on and so forth, because they actually have kind of a limitation there. You're not allowed to proceed past them without ATC clearance. If you've got air traffic control on, if you expect the hold at Bovingdon, in this case if you're flying the Honley 1 hotel like we are today, then you already configure that in the FMC or the FMS. If you don't need it, you could just bypass it, but that means that if you get asked to hold at Bovingdon about now, as you kind of overfly Westcott for example, then you're not caught out in a mad rush trying to set the hold up at the last minute. A little top tip for those of you who fly on VATSIM. But as we mentioned a little earlier on, we've got the hold configured at Bovingdon. We'll begin the entry of it, and then what we'll do is we'll work to kind of descend further, and we'll be at final approach around 2,500 feet overflying Windsor. There's the cabin secure for landing, and the aeroplane will just keep flying this. We can descend through the stack if we want, so if we entered at 11,000 we could work down through 10, through 9, through 8, through 7 to the base of the hold, and then we'd be potentially routed out from there. And all of it works really seamlessly, as I'm sure you could all expect. It's nice seeing the engine bounce there as well. And in the hold page there we can go ahead and just arm the exit like so. Actually we go straight into the exit, and it then redraws the curve, overflies Bovingdon, and then continues on that descent profile like so. So what we'll do now is we'll set 2,500. Vertical speed mode will do us a good service here. And then quick check of the overheads, make sure everything is as it's supposed to be. Light signs, we've already got the cabin secure. And then we've got speed brake arms, it'll be landing gear down, flaps 25. Go for a slightly faster landing, 1 notch less. It's doing really well. There's some fixed rings that I've drawn in with extended centre lines as well, for good measure. And we'll go from auto brake 1 to manual brakes. In that lap part of the descent is a little snapshot of the flight deck environment in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 with the 777-200ER. Just to give you guys an idea of the detail and the complexity. And we're into a little bit of IMC. Lap 5. Okay, heading select. Bring that speed to 180. .110, approach mode armed. Capture the localizer straight away. And that 089 course, I88, everything looks good. Glide slopes armed. Locks active. We are now established. 180, flap 5. Speed check, flap 15. 10 miles. It's just to get the nose down a little bit. .131. So I'll just quickly refresh the speeds. And we'll leave 3,000 sets for the missed approach. Get out. There's Dorney Lakes. And we can see just through the haze there, 09 left and Heathrow Airport in the backdrop as well. 8 miles, 160 till 4. Speed checked. Flaps 20. Back, let's go to flaps 25. Sets. 131. We'll go for 136. That's green. And our landing checklist is complete. Three 6. Final approach speed. With Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, you need to make sure you've got the keybind set for Set Auto Throttle GA. In the old sim I'd had that, in the new sim on that departure clearly I hadn't. So I've fixed that now. And as well, if you don't have a keybind for it, you can click the screw there. That's a keybind click spot.
1,000.
Autopilot off. My controls. And I've set on the sensitivities still very similar to the CRJ, that minus 0.8. I found actually generally for most aeroplanes now that makes them feel a lot heavier, so I've become to really enjoy that setting. So I'd recommend giving that a go. It requires then actual intentional changes to get pitch roll changes in an aircraft. In an aeroplane like this that's so big, it then also kind of gives you that inertia feel as well. Alright, looking quite nice. Coming into Heathrow, the frames always get a bit wobbly even on a 4090. And crossing the M25. Terminal 5's on the right.
Approaching minimums. 200. Minimums.
Continue.
$100. 50.
Looking ahead.
20. 10.
Touchdown. Lowering that nose gently. And we go for reverse green. Manual brakes. And we'll get rid of the reverse thrust 360 knots. So I've just let go of those brakes as well. and we shall vacate here. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for watching. The release is over the next week or so. Hit like, hit subscribe, share your thoughts down in the comments below. Let us know what you think of the new PMDG 777-200ER for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024. And in the meantime, as always, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time.